Good evening and welcome to the Just Danny Show. Tonight's episode, I will be going over the Senate Bill 102, which is also known as the Live Local Act. It was penned by Republicans that probably got into a room and just started drinking, got a little Libby, and decided to write this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dig in. So basically, affordable housing is defined in terms of household income. Resident eligibility for Florida's state and federally funded housing program is typically governed by area median income, or otherwise known as AMI levels. Okay, so these levels are published annually by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, for every county and metropolitan area. Now, I'm just going to be quickly, before we get into the bill, I'm going to kind of break down the AMI super quick based on the 2022 Florida State AMI of $78,300 for a family of four. So that is the 2022 State of Florida AMI for a family of four is $78,300. Okay. So that's the area median income. And obviously, as the family size increases or decreases, the income range also increases or decreases. So there's going to be, was it 1, 2, 3? There's going to be 4 categories in which these affordable housing developments will go ahead and build. Okay, so so there's extremely low income, there's very low income, and then there is a moderate income. So let's go ahead and dig into this SB 102. So this is just kind of break it down into little chunks. I'm not going to get in the weeds and go over every aspect of this. This is 95 pages. We're going to do it by sections. And again, I just wanted to let you know that the first part of this is about counties, and then it goes into talking about municipalities. But it is the same identical language except for one little part, which when I get to that part, I will say, hey, this is the difference between the county and the city. So just for time constraints here, I'm going to just say when I'm reading this, I'm going to say county and municipalities, just so you know, because it's the same exact language. It's just in a different section of the bill. So let's just go ahead and dig in now. So this starts off in sections 2 and 6 of this bill. It's price and rent controls. So price control, it says local governments may not adopt an ordinance or rule imposing price controls on lawful business activity that is not franchised by, owned by, or under contract with a governmental agency. Second, rent control. It says local governments may not adopt laws, ordinances, or rules imposing rent controls. Now, previously, local governments could adopt rent control measures if it was necessary to eliminate an existing housing emergency, which is so grave as to constitute a serious menace to the general public. 2, for only 1 year, and 3, if the rent control measure did not apply to seasonal and tourist units, second homes, and luxury apartment buildings. Moving on to sections 3 and 5 of this bill, which covers local government and land use changes. Now, when I told you this bill was going to piss you off, because it certainly pissed me off, these are the parts here that is a huge government overreach. And actually, at the end of this, which it's going to be quick. At the end of this, I'm going to go over the problems with this bill by the Florida Constitutional. So constitutional problems with it, the state constitution, some fiscal impact problems, and some local government problems with this bill. Okay, so I'm going to do that after the fact, but. So these sections in particular are definitely government overreach. And like I said, I'll get into that with the Florida Constitution here shortly. So local government and land use changes. Waiver of local processes for multifamily projects if 10% of units are affordable. So a county, again, and municipality, because it's the same language, a county may approve a housing development, including a mixed-use residential development on any parcel zoned commercial or even industrial, if at least 10% of those units are affordable. So basically, these developers, if they're going to be building affordable housing, can just pick and choose where they are going to develop. It doesn't matter. You have the county commissioners and the city councils all over the state have to allow this, okay? This is because it's all self-executed by the state. They don't have to get our permission via the city council or the commissioners. Specifically counties, again, is going to be cities too. Administrative approval, affordable multifamily projects. A county must administratively approve a multifamily. They must. This is like in bold. Administratively approve a multifamily and mixed-use residential project and cannot require a rezoning, land use change, special exemption, a conditional use approval, variance, or comprehensive plan amendment for the building height, zoning, or density described in this act, subject to the following parameters. Requirements. As long as the area is zoned commercial, industrial, mixed use, at least 40% of that multifamily residential units in the proposed development are affordable. For this purpose, affordable, once again, means that the monthly rents, including taxes, insurance, and utilities, do not exceed that 30% of area median income AMI for extremely low-income persons. Remember we went over the 30, 50, the 80, and all that. So our very low income persons at the 50% AMI, or low income persons at the 80% AMI, and moderate income persons at the 120% AMI. Now for mixed use residential projects, at least 65% of the project's total square footage must be residential. This is real fun. Maximum density. A county, again, also a city, a county may not restrict a qualifying project below the highest allowed density on any unincorporated land within the county or the city where residential development is allowed. Height. The multifamily building height for a qualifying project may not be restricted below the highest currently allowed height for a commercial or residential development in that same jurisdiction within 1 mile of the proposed development, or 3 stories, whichever is higher. So say, ABC developer comes in, we're going to build affordable housing. We choose to build in this commercial this commercial industrial area. And I'm just pulling these commercial buildings out of my ass here. So we want to build between Kmart and Tire Depot, right between here. So we want to build some apartment complexes, and you have to let us, because we're going to meet the requirements. We're going to have the percentage that we need, affordable, obviously. And so now if within that jurisdiction, within 1 mile, so if 1 mile down the road in that commercial or industrial area, say there's some kind of industrial plant just down the street that's 6 stories tall, or a certain, might not, or a certain height, not necessarily have all the levels inside, but like a certain height, but would be equivalent maybe to 6 stories if we were going to have like floors within the building, right? So, because some warehouses, obviously there's not stories, it's just a big warehouse, it's just tall, no stories, right? So within 1 mile away from here, there's a warehouse that's like equivalent to 6 stories. Well, guess what? If it's within that mile from where they want to build, between that Kmart and Tire Depot, they can build it 6 stories. So there can be a 6-story multifamily apartment complex there. 6 stories if they want, because if you find one within 1 mile, they can, whichever's higher. It's either 3 stories or whichever's higher. So if that warehouse on the street is the equivalent of 6 stories high, that multifamily can be 6 stories high, or even 8 stories. Just depends on how tall the tallest building is within 1 mile. So super cute. I just love how the state, the governor, is reaching in and doing all this overreaching and governing our municipalities. And I'll get into that later, because that's a problem with our Florida Constitution. Satisfaction of local land development regulations. So the multifamily project must, of course, satisfy the county's land and city development regulations for multifamily developments, including regulations related to setbacks and parking. Wow, that gives us a lot to have power over, just setbacks and parking. Provided it satisfies these requirements and is otherwise consistent with the comprehensive plan, the proposed development must be administratively approved. Must be. Now this is fun. That said that we could control the parking still. Well, here we go. There's a little with the parking now. So a county and city must consider reducing the minimum parking requirements described in its land development regulations if the multifamily project is within 1/2 mile of a major transit stop. So I don't know much about the county, and I can't even remember what the city requires, how many parking spots per unit for an apartment. But just for number's sake and time's sake, let's just say, I don't know, they require 10 parking spaces for every 3 units. Okay, let's just say that. Well, the aforementioned little bit said that they could, as long as they did the parking requirements, but the caveat is, well, if they're within a 1/2 mile of a major transit stop, well, then you have to reduce that minimum. So again, I'm just pulling numbers out of my ass. If they require 10 parking spots per 3 units and they're a 1/2 mile away, there's a transit stop, and this ABC developer says, well, you know what? We don't want to do those 10 spots for 3 units. We want to do only three parking spots per 10 units, and you have to let us, because guess what? 1/2 mile down the road, there's a transit stop. There's a bus stop, whatever, down the road there. And then it must be accessible from the proposed development. Now, here's a little bit of a sort of kind of silver lining. So recreational and commercial working waterfronts. Because you won't want them coming in and building right on a waterfront affordable housing, because it's like, okay, what's up with that? Like, who can afford waterfront property? Well, I guess if you want to live in affordable housing, you get waterfront property. No, they put this in here, which thank you. Recreational and commercial working waterfront. So this quote unquote relaxed multifamily development opportunity does not apply to property defined as recreational and commercial working waterfronts. Well, it has to be a commercial working waterfront in any area zoned as industrial. So there's that. Required mixed use residential. Now, if the multifamily development is 1, zoned for commercial or industrial use, and 2, within the boundaries of a multi-county independent special district created to provide municipal services and is not authorized to levy ad valorem taxes, and less than 20% of the land area within the district is designated as commercial or industrial use, then the county must only administratively approve otherwise qualifying multifamily projects if the project is mixed use residential. So what that is saying, blah, 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 what that is saying is if this ABC developer wants to come in and they want to build on a parcel that's zoned commercial and or industrial, you have to, of course, allow it per state law now. You have to allow it, but because it's commercial and or industrial, they have to do a mixed use. They would have to do a mixed use. So like apartments on top and some commercial on the bottom. So they would have to do a mixed use residential. Now, remember I told you everything I'm talking about that says county is also municipality. It's the same exact language except for one difference. Well, this is the one difference here. So municipalities, administrative approval, affordable multifamily projects. The above is identical for municipalities, which I just said, except that if a municipality designates less than 20% of its land area as commercial or industrial, then the multifamily project must be mixed-use residential. Unlike counties, the multifamily development need not be within a multi-county independent special district to trigger the mixed-use residential requirement. So that's the only difference between the municipality and the county. It doesn't need, in the city, it doesn't need to be with a multi-county independent special district to trigger that mixed-use residential requirement. So there's that. Now, county and municipal property are appropriate for affordable housing. So here we go. Next up. So just to recap, ABC developers can come in, whether they're nonprofit or from the private sector, and they can build multifamily anywhere they want as an infill project, in between a Kmart and a tire depot where there's no other residential, as long as it's mixed use. or they can just stick their multifamilies anywhere. They don't need conditional use permits. They don't need variances. They don't need shit. They can just do it. So basically, why do we even need county or council members? Because people can just come in and do what they want. So that's where we're at so far. Okay. The state, our lovely governor, who has really been pissing me off lately. Now, I don't know if it's because he's running for president, so he's trying to kiss the ass of all the libtards. I don't know what his deal is. Or he's trying to kiss the ass of his donors for his presidential campaign because, again, you know, what Republican doesn't love a developer? So maybe they donated a bunch of money to him and they're like wanting some kickback. Like, hey, why don't you help us out, you know? Let us develop and give us all these incentives. We haven't even got to the incentives yet, so hold on to your hat for that one. Give us these incentives and let us just build wherever we want. So there's that thus far with this bill. Now enter more government overreach, because now our state government wants to tell you, the municipality, the county, what to do with your land. Because as you are aware, county does own some land of their own. Every municipality has their own land. This actually will give our mayor Murray a chub, because I remember when he ran last year for mayor, he mentioned, you know, we need to start looking for more city-owned property and turn it into affordable housing. Well, your dream came true, Murray. Did you write this bill? No, you're not. You're not coherent enough to do that. Anyway, so this is the next part. When it comes to the land surplus of both county and municipality. So it's called an inventory list. So each county and municipality must prepare an inventory list of all property within its jurisdiction or any dependent special district within its boundaries that may be appropriate for use as affordable housing. To encourage potential development of multifamily housing, the list must be available to the public on the county/municipality's website. So now we have more work for our city people to do and our county people to do. We have to keep this inventory list, and we have to put our inventory list up on the website and start encouraging affordable housing, multifamily people to come in and build. Like here, it's like they can come on our website and they can shop for land to build affordable housing, apartments. So that's what they need to do on that. In addition to a traditional sale of such property to a developer with restrictions imposed thereon for affordable housing, or the donation, you can donate it, I don't think so, or the donation of such property to a nonprofit. Dear Lord, please, we don't need to be donating any more shit to Find, Feed, and Restore. Or the donation of such property to a nonprofit housing organization for its use in building affordable housing. Of course, let's just pause there for a moment, because Brian Broadway, you know, his brother's the chief of the police, and the chief of police is up Murray's ass. So who knows? Maybe they could talk the city into donating some property to Find, Feed, and Restore. Why the hell not? So anyways, or the donation of such property to a nonprofit housing organization for its use in building affordable housing. Housing may be developed on the property through a long-term land lease requiring affordable housing. So basically, the city can donate this surplus land to a nonprofit. They can sell it or they can lease it. Next, we're talking about best practices. So counties and municipalities are encouraged to adopt best practices for surplus land programs, including establishing eligibility criteria, making the process for requesting surplus lands publicly available, ensuring long-term affordability through ground lease by retaining a right of first refusal to purchase property that is sold or offered at market rate, and requiring a reversion of property not used for affordable housing with a certain time frame. So there's that. So now the governor is telling us, screw your code, screw your LDR, screw everything. We're going to self-execute affordable housing, whether you like it or not. We're going to overreach there, and you're not going to abide by your law, for lack of a better term, laws, rules, codes, stuff like that. So basically, screw you. You will put a bunch of apartments all over your city, all over your county, because we said so. Two, you got some surplus, you got some land surplus. well, we're going to make you give it up to affordable housing, whether that's via giving it away to a nonprofit, selling it, or leasing it. But you have to, inventory it, put it on their website, and advocate for affordable housing builders to come in and build on it. Next up, ad valorem property tax exemptions. Oh, this is fun. This is so fun for developers and nonprofit folks. So let's start with nonprofits. So land that is owned entirely by a qualified Section 501c3 organization is eligible for an ad valorem property tax exemption if such land is leased for a minimum of for a minimum of 99 years for the purpose of and is predominantly used for affordable housing that serves extremely low income, very low income, and or moderate income, and is predominantly used for affordable housing if the square footage of the improvements on the property used for affordable housing is greater than 50% of the square footage of all improvements on that property. Then there's the next part called the missing middle. Affordable housing developers shall receive what is commonly referred to as a, quote, missing middle ad valorem tax exemption for portions of a multifamily project that meet certain requirements. These developers will get a sales tax exemption for their building materials. Why not? Used in the construction of affordable housing units. So I want to stop right there super quick. Aside from impact fees, which helps with our infrastructure needs, they're not going to be paying any taxes as long as they keep warm bodies in these units that qualify as affordable housing, whether it's those four I was telling you about: extremely low income, medium income, what the hell would I say? Something income, whatever. So if it falls on one of those four, as long as you keep a warm body in there that qualifies as an affordable housing person, they don't have to pay taxes. I mean, isn't that how our municipalities and our counties function? Aside from impact fees, because we know they blow those impact fees and other shit, whatever. That those impact fees don't do shit. They don't last very long. It's the taxes that keep our counties and cities going, right? So if we're going to let all of these assholes in, come on, the water's warm, come on in, just pave our entire state of Florida with apartments. Make sure they're affordable, and we're going to give you all these breaks. We're going to give you sales tax exemptions. We're going to give you an exemption from ad valorem taxes for land that meets certain criteria. We're going to give you ad valorem tax exemption for portions of property in a multifamily project if certain, conditions are met. Come on in. We're going to give you all kinds of fun shit. And again, I'm going to cover this at the end. What the impacts this is going to have on local government, not even to mention state government. And we'll get into that here now. So there's a lot of stuff kind of packed into this bill aside from the bullshit that I just mentioned. Now, I'm not going to go thoroughly all through this bill because I don't want to get in the weeds and I don't want this podcast to be too long. So feel free, and I encourage you to go and read this bill for yourself because there's other things in it that are going to cost the state of Florida millions and millions and millions of dollars through the general fund. So one in particular is called the Florida Hometown Hero Program, Section 35 of this bill, financial assistance for Florida residents. So now we're getting into the mortgage business. In case you didn't know, the state of Florida is going to get in the mortgage business now. So the Florida Hometown Hero Program will be assisting residents in purchasing a home as their primary residence. So a borrower may apply to the Florida Housing Financing Corporation for a loan to reduce the amount of the down payment and closing costs paid by the borrower by a minimum of $10,000 and up to 5% of the first mortgage loan, not exceeding $35,000. These loans must be at a 0% interest rate. That's nice. and must be available for the term of the first mortgage. Now, the requirements to get one of these loans from the state of Florida, because now we're in the mortgage business, must have a household income that does not exceed 150% of the state median income or local median income, whichever is greater. Must be a first-time home buyer. So the requirement to be a first-time home buyer does not apply to an actual active duty service member of a branch of the armed forces or Florida National Guard or veteran, which that's good. I mean, that's nice. Employed full-time. This is also a good one. They need to make sure that they're working because we're not going to be a welfare state, right? So if you must be employed full-time, which is 35 hours or more per week by a Florida-based employer, gotcha. Can't work from home for some company in Texas. In addition to the funding of traditional single-family homes, loans can be made for the purpose of acquiring a manufactured home. So if you want to buy a trailer home, or I don't know, I guess the fancy term now is manufactured home, or those homes that are put together on site there, wherever your acreage is, whatever, as long as it was constructed after July 13th, 1994, and is permanently affixed to real property. So there you go. Now, again, like I was saying, there's a lot of stuff in this bill like that you're like, what? So, but what's that got to do with affordable housing? So there are appropriations from state funds to fund all of this. And I'm talking about appropriations from state funds like in the millions. Millions upon hundreds of millions upon hundreds of millions upon hundreds of millions. Okay? This is going to cost the state of Florida a lot of money. A lot of money. And then just some little quick takeaways that I saw in the bill that I just want to, I wrote down here so I wouldn't forget. There is one silver lining, though, is that none of this applies to areas of critical state concern. So Brian Broadway might have got a chub thinking he could go back at the Bay Lake property for his, lack of a better term, homeless shelter. But no. So kudos to the Republican drunks for that did this bill to remember the area of critical state concern. So like the green swamp. So thanks for that. Also, the state and local governments are going to shall provide incentive to encourage the private sector. So the state and local governments are going to want to push the private sector to be the primary delivery vehicle for these affordable home developments. Now, I honestly don't think that you're going to get very many people in the private sector trying to facilitate one of these developments. It's just not feasible for them. They can't make money off of it. These developers are greedy bastards. They want to make as much money as possible. Do they like the density issue where they can just do whatever the hell they want and just shove a bunch in there? Sure, they're going to love that. But if they have to go by these AMIs, it's kind of putting a little damper on how much money they can make in a sense. So I just really don't see them too stoked about it. I think your nonprofits are really going to step up. They like that free shit. So, and then of course, local government incentives to stimulate private sector development. They think this is going to work for the private sector. Hey, we're going to, as long as you do affordable housing, we're going to include establishing density bonus incentives, which by the way, Claremont had already had under their affordable housing ordinance. They already had it. They already have a density bonus incentive. If you're going to build affordable housing, we'll give you more density. That was already a thing with us. But I think the thing that really got me going, is I talk about innovative solutions to housing issues to include, but not be limited to, several things. They have several things listed, but one that stood out to me where I was just like, okay, that's it. We're done. DeSantis is like a Newsom now. We're done. Is that they quote, they want to, one of the innovative solutions that they mentioned was, quote, mixed income projects that facilitate more diverse and successful communities. Okay. you know how I feel about that word diverse and diversity? I want to vomit. And, fight me. I don't care. Yeah, I said it. Okay, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of hearing that word diverse and diversity. It pisses me off. And now Florida, now we're doing it. Whatever. I can't. I just can't. So let's go into the impact of the bill, which is super quick, and then I'm going to let you go. Impact of the bill. Now, there are some constitutional issues with this bill via the state of Florida Constitution, that is. So the constitutional issues here would be the municipality county mandates restrictions. So in Article 7, subsection 18A of the Florida Constitution provides, in part, that a county or municipality may not be bound by a general law requiring a county or municipality to spend funds or take an action that requires the expenditure of funds unless certain specified exemptions or exceptions are met. Now, under the bill, counties and municipalities may be required to spend funds related to publishing certain policies and documents online, administering new tax exemptions, and updating inventories of publicly owned land. So there's a problem right there. So then we move on to the fiscal impacts. Now, of course, they're going to affect the state, but I want to point out the more local impacts because, we're going to feel it, whether it's state or not. But I just thought it'd be more interesting to cover the local impacts. So according to the Revenue Estimate Conference, otherwise known as the REC, they said there will be some fiscal impacts, obviously, like I said, for the state, but for all intents and purposes, let's just go over how it will affect our municipalities. So the sales tax refund for building materials that this bill is talking about, right, will actually reduce local government revenues by $8.9 million beginning in fiscal year 2023-2024. $8.9 million will reduce local government revenues. That's a problem. The property tax, let's cover the property tax exemption for certain lands leased for affordable housing. Remember I said certain lands leased for affordable housing will reduce local property tax revenues by $8.5 million beginning in fiscal year 2023-2024. So, which we're already feeling because it says 2023 here, but that's a lot of money. And I already mentioned that earlier on. I mean, impact fees, okay, whatever. But it's the taxes that keep us, kicking. So if they're not paying taxes, that's going to reduce our revenues by $8.5 million for municipalities. The local option affordable housing property tax exemption, which is also in this bill, will have an indeterminate reduction to local property tax revenue due to variations in how many local governments implement the program. But the REC estimates the impact could be a reduction of local property tax revenues by $225.1 million. $225.1 million by fiscal year 2027 to 2028. That is a lot of money. The property tax exemption for the newly constructed or substantially rented. Now, I didn't go over this in the bill, but this exists. You go and familiarize yourself with it. But there is a section in there for exemption if for newly constructed or substantially renovated multifamily rental units used to provide affordable housing would reduce local government revenues by $183 million by fiscal year 2027 to 2028, with no impact in fiscal year 2023 to 2024 and increasing rates thereafter. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at government sector impacts. So local governments may incur expenditures and lost revenues in implementing the bill with regard to updating inventory list of publicly owned land, publishing certain procedures and regulations electronically, and administering new ad valorem tax exemptions. So anytime you put a new bill into play that has all this shit in it and it affects municipalities and counties, you're going to have to rewrite shit, spend money to upload shit. I mean, this is, and I didn't even get into what it's going to do to the state. Like millions upon millions upon hundreds of millions of dollars are going to be appropriated for this, this mortgage venture that we're on for people to help them get their first home. But locally, as I just said, it is really going to affect us too. So I just think this is a shit show. I just really think this is a shit show. And some people might say, oh, well, it's great. They're helping folks. There are some folks that they're helping with the housing thing with disabled. I'm totally down for that because they're not an able working body. They're disabled. So, I'm down with that, or disabled vets. I'm down with that as well. But if you're an able-bodied worker, and I'm just going to say something. I'm going to wrap this, and then I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm going to piss off a lot of people and don't care. But this is how I feel. And I said this to my real estate buddy today. People choose their path in life. And I'm talking about, well, in many aspects, but specifically I'm speaking of career. You choose your career path. If you choose poorly, hell, I choose poorly in a career path. I went with TV and radio, one of the shittiest paid careers you could ever get into. That's on me. But I've never asked people to build shit for me, give me free shit or 0% interest shit to help me buy shit. I've always worked my ass off. Sometimes I've worked more than one job when I was younger, okay? But that was my fuck up. That was my choice. My career path, again, did not pay shit. I loved what I did, but that was ultimately my choice. Knew I wasn't going to get rich off of it, okay? So when are we going to start having accountability for our own lives and responsibility and stop depending on our government or other people to feel sorry for us and give us shit? Now they did say you had to be working. You did. You had to be working 35 plus hours. But again, which is good. But again, if you choose a shitty career path, that's your fault. That's not everybody else's problem to foot the bill and give you shit. Do you know what I'm saying? But this is going to cost the state millions and millions and millions of dollars. Our whole state is going to be an impervious surface. It's going to decrease home values, especially if someone wants to put apartments right next door to you, and they can. Remember, they don't need a CUP. They don't need permission. All that's out the window. They can do what they want. You must quit. No, really, if they want to build, they can do it. Period. I mean, it's an overreach by our government. I think it's horseshit. I think DeSantis needs to keep his hands out of municipal, what we do, what counties do. It's none of their damn business. As long as we're not breaking the law. But who the hell are you to do that? Even the Florida Constitution, I just told you, it has that first Article 7, subsection 18A. There's a problem with that. That's a problem. But they did it anyway. We'll see how this goes. So let me know what you think. It's crazy town. Those of you that are familiar with Hooks and Citrus Tower, those treed lots right there that are gorgeous, it's actually county. It's actually considered county. Because our city of Claremont is like a patchwork quilt. Parts are county, parts are city. But there's already dibs on those 10 acres that front Hook Street. Jimmy Crawford has already inquired to the city about those 10 acres for one of his clients to do a 290 multifamily units over there. So more apartments, more traffic. I'm worried about the schools. I'm worried about the traffic. But hey, doesn't matter. They have to let them build. And I also wanted to add, real quick before I go, that I spoke to P&Z or planning at the city. And I was told that they're being inundated right now. Of course, Jimmy Crawford, like I just said, is one of them. But they're being inundated right now with permit applications for multifamily regarding this bill. So get ready, Claremont. Get ready. They literally told me that they are up to their ears in permits for multifamily. I don't know where we're going to put them. Shove them here, shove them there, shove them everywhere. Everywhere, shove, apartments.